What's up, everybody? Samantha's here, Samantha's queer, and I'm from Russia. Obviously, I'm not Caucasian, so I'm queer and I'm Russia's ethnic minority. As you may know, LGBTQIA plus rights, aka human rights, are being violated in my country. Ethnic minorities' rights are also being violated in this great superpower. So we're going to talk about this, as well as Pope Francis, Ukraine's President Zelensky, Joe Biden, even about Dylan Mulvaney. We're also going to answer this question: why the United States has to be involved in what's going on in Ukraine. So girl, it was one hell of a year. So many crazy things happened. 2022 was a year of incredibly complex set of circumstances, things. So this video is a review of this crazy year from my point of view. I'm a person who had to flee my country this year. I'm a person who left my country forever. 2022 was different from different people. Captain Obvious here. Have a look at India's trending videos. They're having their own 2022 recap. Turn your attention to America. It's completely different. Video of Kylie Jenner talking about her trip to Bahamas is one of the most trending videos these days.
It's a lot of fun.
It almost makes us believe everything's just fine across the globe. As a matter of fact, just like I said, it's been one hell of a year for all of us. I want to believe that this video is made for a global audience. No matter where you're from, this video is to everyone who sees not what the world is, but what it can be. I think it'd be fair to say that the entire year was awful globally, and it left us with what it left us. Price rise and economic turmoil being something that probably unites, so to speak, all human beings.
By removing the peels, pits, and stems from fruits and vegetables before they're weighed at the register, Stephanie saves up to $3 per shopping trip.
Some people are looking back on the year and they can rewind something like Will Smith punching Chris Rock at the Oscars. Yes, there are so many good and bad memes 2022 gave us. Others would probably point at, I don't know, MCR comeback, release of Stranger Things season 4. All these nice and funny things have nothing to do with my personal experience of this awful year. Oh, by the way, if you're watching this video to see what I've got to say on Zelensky historic visit to the US, just go straight to this time code. Do you guys ever look back at your past self and feel like it was a foreign person living your life? Like a year ago, I was worse, I was less smart, I didn't understand anything in the field of geopolitics. I was basically living in my own fairy tale, aka Fool's Paradise. And this is exactly the way 2022 started for me, so it started pretty well in Moscow, in my own apartment, not mortgaged. All January long, I was eating salads and other leftovers from Christmas and New Year's, and I was revisiting old movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that was something that basically etherized me to a dreamy placidity and nostalgia, and I thought like, oh, life is perfect and it can always be like this. Something bad was taking place in a neighboring country of Kazakhstan. I was surprised, but first thing I thought was, what's wrong with those Kazakh people? Why can't they just live well instead of those protests, bloody scuffles? Oh, that was so terrible. So I wanted to delve into a superhero movie instead and forget all the politics. On February 24th, everything changed. It turned upside down. On February 24th, Putin did what he did. He invaded Ukraine, which is a sovereign state. And during his speech on Russian TV, Putin told Russian people his goal was to demilitarize and de-schmutzify Ukraine.
What does that mean?
I remember myself watching that online. I was sitting at home, enjoying my dinner in my own apartment. In the apartment, I didn't have plans to ever sell. Spoiler, I sold it because I had to flee the country eventually, so stay tuned. So I was listening to that he was saying. It was being posted on various Telegram channels. I didn't have a TV set at home. When I heard the word denazification, I thought it was something curious, something smart and educated persons supposed to know. I started Googling this word. I wanted to learn what the schmutzification meant in contemporary reality, not within the context of post-Hitler's Germany. And you know what? I failed to find any rationale, so I kept listening to what the president was saying. This because I don't consider him a president. It took us a couple of more days for all of us to realize that this person has his own view on the world's history and life philosophy in general, and it's just mind-blowing. It turned out that what he meant is that there are areas in Ukraine where lots of ethnic Russians are living, and these ethnic Russians are being bullied by Ukrainians, Ukrainian government, and most of it all by a certain Banderas followers. I thought that modern-day Ukrainians are able to find much more interesting people to follow. This is just insane. He just feigned the whole history, and it was broadcasted on the federal TV. And this is, by the way, not the first time he offers his own history to the viewers. What I can recall now is that once, many years ago, he was crapping along something about mechanics, so that it became a meme. So now we're all definitely not in a playful mood. What exactly he told Russian people on TV that day and why lots of people bought it? He said that there are many ethnic Russians who are living in territories which are part of today's Ukraine, and they just happened to be there after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. So the whole thing is just surreal. Like, aren't there ethnic Ukrainians who live in Russia's Far East or Russia's Siberia? Like, I remember lots of my classmates had a last name ending with K-O. And what exactly is ethnic Russian? Is Putin an aspiring anthropologist? I thought he was supposed to be a servant of the nation. Just like I said, the fact that the whole issue is brought up is surreal. Like, what is ethnic Bulgarian? What is ethnic Romanian? What is ethnic Polish? Like, to me, all of these people look pretty much the same. Like, maybe because they're human beings. What is ethnic American? Are there any at least few anthropologists working for Putin's team? I think the fuck not. Okay, is Marilyn Manson ethnic American? Are we allowed to call Arnold Schwarzenegger or Dominic Monaghan Americans? Maybe they need Germany to save them from the United States bullying them. Okay, you're likely to find some differences between this phenotype and this one. But still, if I didn't tell you that the former one is a frontman of the Finnish rock band, if there's no flag of Finland, it would be hard for you to realize that these people are different. Because they're not different. They're people, they're human beings. So basically what this brilliant person called the president of the Russian Federation stated is that there are many ethnic Russians living in today's Ukraine and they are being bullied by the Ukrainian government, or at least they're not being protected by Ukrainian government because their ancestors from the early 20th century were Russians, not Ukrainians. Like, it was, again, just like I said, it was so surreal, so stupid, like how exactly Russians they were. Like, were they Russians from the Republic of Sakha, or from Russia's Dagestan, or Moscow, or Siberia? I mean, physically you would never distinguish ethnic Russian from ethnic Belarusian, or ethnic Ukrainian, or ethnic Lithuanian. Put it easy, they are all white people. But even if they're Asians or blacks, like, who cares? They're all people, they're like all human beings. Anyways, according to Putin, Russia was obliged to save and protect those ethnic Russians. And the most brilliant part of it all is that overly 60% of Russians bought this. When I watched Putin's announcement in February, like, of course I started discussing all this shit with my friends, and first, me and my close friends, we were agreed at most of the things about what's going on in the country, what's wrong with the president. But then, as you started approaching some more people, you know, you started realizing that not all of your acquaintances and people who you thought were nice people, people of your circle, people who you thought were not stupid, like, they turned out to be stupid, which is basically the first case in my life when we started realizing what politics is, what different mindsets are. I'm going to talk about some of my friends and some of my relatives in another video here on my channel and probably on Patreon. Those are really private cases of my encounters and my communication with those Russians who bought that shit. told by Putin. But bottom line is that this year, schmaltzy mood, this kind of sentiment has sprung in society and probably in societies across the globe. No doubt it was launched by Putin, who first tried to make us think that we've got to invade Ukraine because we are different and they are different. Like, some people are Russians and some people are Ukrainians. This rhetoric was being used from February up to late September. And in late September, he started using the anti-LGBTQIA plus rhetoric. He switched it from the schmatzification to anti-LGBT. Starting from September, Putin wants Russians to believe that this war is against gay people. Like, again, the power holders figured it's a very easy tool to say that these kind of people are different. The LGBTQIA plus people, they are our enemies. These ruling circles, like these people who are called elite political class, all they're doing is trying to make ordinary people think that we have to fight against something because there are some differences, as though there's no way to find compromise. And the anti-LGBT rhetoric was bought more willingly, by the way. Then Pope Francis caught with the schmaltzy rhetoric. He described two of Russia's ethnic minority groups, the Chechens and Burats, as some of the cruelest troops fighting in Ukraine. So he literally said this: it's not Russian people, it's Burats and Chechens who are supposed to be blamed for what's going on in Ukraine. Russians are not cruel, they're not plunderers, they're not abusers. It's mostly Burats and Chechens. Girl, we do realize that Pope Francis is a highly intellectual person. He is well educated, right? He perfectly knows how exactly what he's saying would influence those minorities, those ethnic minorities. And those minority groups, many of them, they are not well educated. Their first reaction, the first thing they thought they were supposed to do is defend themselves, like answer rudeness with rudeness, and so some of them started making videos addressed to Pope Francis. They started giving malediction to Pope Francis, and Pope Francis is associated with the West in their eyes, right? So his speech was against those ethnic minorities, and it catalyzed hatred towards the West and gave them more explanation as to why they're destined to go to war and prove that they are, winners, patriots, homeland defenders. So girl, what I'm saying is that these people, Putin, Pope Francis, and many others across the globe, they are supposed to be servants of the people, if it's democracy, right? If you're a pope, you're supposed to spread love, because this is what the Bible tells you. But instead, they're putting people at loggerheads with each other, and I think what I'm trying to say is in sync with what John Lennon used to say.
I think they're all insane.
By the way, interestingly, this year, Joe Biden, as well as Ukraine's President Zelensky, have never said anything like this. I mean, what these people are saying seems to be fair. I'm sure they're not angels, but at least they look like people who really want peace to prevail across the globe. Interestingly, before the war started, in January and February 2022, I was watching that most stupid Netflix series called Black Summer. It's about a zombie apocalypse. The whole show's plot develops around people running from zombies and zombies running for people and trying to bite them. That's all the show's about. It's completely stupid, but when you're watching this kind of creepy and meaningless movies, you think oh, it's just a movie, you don't have to be scared. The good thing is that the apocalypse is not real. It's never gonna happen, nothing bad will ever happen. You're just wasting your time enjoying some Netflix, and then the apocalypse becomes reality. You're in the country you have to flee because there are literally zombies in your country. It's not your country anymore. All you have to do is take a decision and run. Those first days of the war. Like, okay, in Moscow everything was fine. It's not some country invaded Russia, it's Russia invaded Ukraine. There were no bombings in Moscow, nothing like that. But anyways, those first days of the war, especially when you do realize it's your country doing wrong, not Ukraine, not the Western countries, those days were unbearable. Never in my life I had felt completely lost. I accumulated many things, many items, like belongings. As I said, I wanted to live in that apartment like until the day I die. I wanted to become old in Moscow. I'm very attached to my belongings, to many tiny items, you know. So after I put up my apartment for sale and started packing my belongings, I kept saying to myself something like, no way, it can't be real. It's gonna be over. Tomorrow you'll just flush it.
I can't believe the whole thing is just happening.
But that was not a bad dream, that was reality.
I'm crazy. Like zombies are in my country and I'm still not throwing away the stuff, not ready to let it go.
Of course, I'm not comparing my feelings with what Ukrainian people have been going through, because the war is not over, unfortunately. But it's just this video, it's about what I was through, because I'm only able to talk 100% truth about myself only, right? So that was the hardest decision ever made, but I made it quickly. In early March, I knew I would not stay in Russia. I wanted to speak out. Like, I used to be a 1K subscribers YouTuber and 90K followers TikToker in Russia, and I wanted to criticize the government. But if I did it, I would have been behind bars. There's no freedom of speech in Russia. There's no such thing as saying what you think about the government and going scot-free. It's not like the United States. So during this year, many things happened in my country. McDonald's left the country, brands like Levi's and H&M left the country, Instagram was blocked, Visa and MasterCard left the country. If you're abroad, if you're not in Russia, you can't use your Visa or MasterCard issued in Russia. And girl, this year is about to end, and Ukraine's President Zelensky has recently visited the United States, and there was his historical speech. And God, all year long, I thought America is such a great country. It helps Ukraine a lot in terms of ammo and money, of course. I sometimes ask my friend, who's an American, who's liberal, I guess she's liberal. I sometimes ask her about the United States, how the Russia-Ukraine situation is being accepted by ordinary people. And she keeps answering to me something like, everything's fine, all the good people do realize America is doing the right thing by helping Ukraine. And then I encountered this conservative girl's video.
A lot of the time, it seems like Biden cares more about what's happening in the Ukraine than what's happening in America.
To say I was shocked would be an understatement. It turns out that there are so many conservatives who are in no way different from those Russians who support Putin's invasion and regime.
Handle in the most responsible way.
But the Ukraine is not a democracy, and it has never been a democracy.
Her critics of neopronouns and Gen Z TikTokers was something that she did better. So she made this video as though she did a lot to get rid of the homelessness crisis. As though all her YouTube career she's been working toward telling people it's good to help homeless people. She has never done it. All she's doing on her channel is criticizing trans persons and some TikTokers. And then, out of a sudden, she comes out with a video and she criticizes Zelensky.
Plus, you think that with all the money we're sending, he could have bought himself a suit and a tie.
Like, it's okay to criticize Biden for inviting Dylan Mulvaney amid record high inflation and rising crime rates in the United States, but it's absolutely unacceptable to say we've got to think about our own problems instead of helping Ukraine. I am really upset to see this is happening. I don't know what's wrong with this kind of people. Like, obviously, they have never heard anything about global supply chains and, more importantly, spheres of influence. The United States is not an isolated country. Something bad happens on the other side of the world, it worsens the situation in the United States. If the United States doesn't help Ukraine, it will worsen the situation inside America itself. Okay, so it took me 6 months to sell my apartment, but I put it up for sale on day 3 or 4 of the war. In 2015, I came back to Moscow from New York City, and I did it because I was proud of my country's capital city. I loved so many things about it, and I wanted to be its part. Like, I wanted to be a part of Moscow, and I guess I was. Like, Moscow was my home. I bought an apartment there. I didn't want to live in another country. Like, I didn't have that purpose in my life. Immigration is not in the cards. But after February 24th, everything's changed. Like, many things surfaced. It turned out that it's not my country anymore. I don't have homeland. I was just deprived of it. If you spread any information about awful Putin's regime, you risk to be put behind bars for 15 years. You may keep a low profile, but for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? Well, anyways, keeping silent won't make your life better in Russia. Everything's gonna turn to North Korea day by day. Lots of people stayed in the country. Many of them don't give a fuck and just do their business. I can't say I judge them. Not everyone has something to sell in order to flee, but I took my decision. I left in order to have a chance to speak and spread the truth as I can see it. Before 2022, I thought that on my platforms on the internet, I would philosophize on lifestyle topics like pros and cons of living with roommates or gay relationships. But it turns out that 2022 is the year when Samantha the geopolitician is born. So, 2022 was one hell of a year, just like I said. So this year was the year when I, and hopefully many others across the globe, realized that we're living in the history textbook. Things like high YouTube censorship, sexism, and LGBTQIA+ phobia are, among other things, tools used by the power holders to spread discord. And not this one. You can't live in a bubble and care less about other people. And the final thing is that each and every human being must do their best to spread love and tolerance across the globe. Yeah, as cliche as it may sound, but there's literally no other way to stop hatred and war. Before it all happened in February, I didn't think it was that way in my country. Like, last 10 years I've been living in Moscow, and probably just like in any other big cities, living in Moscow doesn't provide you with the true picture of what's going on in the country, right? Like, in people's minds, what they're up to. And I think I lived in fool's paradise. I thought everything was fine with people. You go out, you can see people around using iPhones, wearing trendy clothes. Turned out there's a huge number of those who are below the poverty line. 24/7 they're thinking of how to put food on the table. And of course, they don't care about elite, they don't care about politics, geopolitics. I don't think they're supposed to be blamed for that, but just like I said, it's an incredibly complex set of things, circumstances, events. And there's also one more thing I rediscovered in 2022. There's still something that every human being possesses. It's a choice. But I guess that's a topic I'm going to talk about in another video. Oh, by the way, there are plenty of videos here on my channel. Please make sure to watch them. If you're still here, please subscribe to my channel. I do need subscribers. Please be my subscriber and hit the thumbs up button. It helps promoting the video. If you want to support Samantha the geopolitician, you can buy me a coffee using the website Buy Me a Coffee, or you can use websites like Patreon if it's more convenient to you. So thanks for watching, everyone. That's it for today. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. That's it. Cheers.